Nerd On the Podcast is proudly partnered with Apogee Electronics and Odyssey Headphones, leaders in the field of audio.
I'm going to Kevin Smith this and say, I want to watch your movie.
What is, everyone? Welcome back to Nerd On the Podcast you didn't need, but you deserve, and where all levels of nerd are welcome.
All of them.
All of them.
Even the one on the trees.
No.
Pledged is pledged.
Oh.
Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the thing looking at you from down the hall, but how it waits for you to look back. Today, we take a look into a fresh take on the horror genre through an indie comic which will make a certain capeless crusader very, very happy with Scott Snyder's Wytches. I'm very excited.
Wait, who? Who does it make happy?
Oh, it's David Barry.
David Barry.
All right. Shout out.
He's the indie
He's a
guy.
Scott Snyder enthusiast.
Shout out to
A Snyderist.
Dr. Barry.
Yes.
So am I. That's what we have in common. We both like Snyders.
Oh,
I'm like you.
so sweet.
Word. I asked for this comic that we do this, so I'm very excited that we are doing this. But before we get into the episode, let us introduce the host. I am Josh.
I'm Tom.
I'm Caitlin.
I am Corey.
And this episode is brought to you in part by the members of the Nerd On Nation that is powered by Patreon.
Patreon.
As a member of the Nerd On Nation, you do get fun perks like you get early access to these episodes. You get bonus episodes that nobody else hears. You get access to all sorts of really cool stuff like servers that are just for Nerd On Nation members in our channels in our Discord server. I always mix up server, channel. It's like we make whole new servers just for them.
The server is where all the channels exist.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it.
That's our server.
He just gets the words mixed up.
I just mix up
He knows
the
what they are.
words. Words are
I was
important.
just trying to make hand shapes for those watching the video, so Josh could server.
But yeah, lots of really cool things come with being a member of the Nerd On Nation. So do check that out. nerdon.tv/Patreon. And be sure to check out and join that Discord, nerdon.tv/Discord. And a huge shout out to our partners, Apogee and Odyssey. Apogee has equipped us with these fantastic microphones, the Hype Mic, the ultimate podcasting microphone. No, but really, it's a wonderful microphone that is incredibly versatile. Versatile.
Versatile
Versatile.
with
It
a
has
Y.
versatility.
Versatility.
Versus
Yeah,
discuss.
from streaming to even like Zoom calls to all sorts of really cool stuff.
Or using it for FaceTime with my mom because it has a lightning adapter.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or recording your TikToks, fellow young people.
okay.
Hell
Tom.
yeah. Hell yeah. But yeah, check that out, Hype Mic. And do check out Odyssey headphones, as we have said many times before, and will continue to say because it makes Tom angry. If your ears were mouths, they taste like butter. It has been officially accepted by Odyssey, so it's a real thing. TM.
Little side story on that.
You're welcome.
I've been doing this adaptation project, which is very headphone heavy, like so many hours every day. And I was using these other headphones for it foolishly, and all of a sudden my head started hurting, and the top of my head was hurting, and I was getting a headache. And I switched to these headphones, and like it just went away. And then the rest of the day was great. I actually made a little Instagram video being like, oh, these are great, which I never do because it feels weird, but it actually was worth it. So
This message is approved by Odyssey.
essentially, yeah.
Paid for.
You
Now
get
we need
Jared
the
to
sped
come
up
in here.
message.
Jared?
I used to be
Just
short
pulled
my
a name
wife,
out of the
diabetes.
ether. That was not the right one.
But yeah, that is the housekeeping. Let us go deep into the woods and discuss this story, this wonderful comic book.
I like going deep. Anyway, so everyone,
I can't.
you
do the
know
Tom
what time
side,
it is.
but I would.
You know what time it is. And if you don't, welcome, because you're probably brand new. But today, right now, this gets us to our first two segments to our show, because at the end of this episode, we're going to rate it. And
Are we, even though it's volume 1?
Oh,
And
yeah,
there's
we're
a 2 coming?
We're not
I
gonna rate
mean,
it.
there
There's
is a
more on the
poll
way.
out there in the world.
I know, But I didn't know there was a volume 2 coming. That's my
Well,
fault.
we're gonna rate it because
All
it's
right.
completed now.
So we're gonna rate.
It's done.
We're gonna change our rules, and we're gonna rate this volume 1.
We're gonna rate it.
Because we can. But what does that
Because
mean, Tom?
Josh likes objectifying the things that make him happy.
Yeah.
So that means right now we are going to go around this digital screens and guess that grump.
And they are in the trees, and they come out of the trees, and they do because you were promised to them. You were promised to them.
We went different routes there, huh?
Pledge is pledged.
Pledge. Also, lemon pledge. So everyone, if you're brand spanking new to the show, Guess That Grump is the segment where we are going to go ahead and guess who's going to have the lowest score from 0 to 5. No matter how high the number is, the lowest number will be the grump for the week. And if you, I'll let Corey talk about that afterwards. So I'm going to go first.
Because you explained it so well.
I know, right?
So good.
Well, because everyone else didn't explain it at all. I'm just kidding. No.
Wow.
So I'm going to guess that Caitlin's going to be the grump.
All right.
Because it's
think
going to
it's-
be Josh and it's going to be Corey, and they're both like, no, don't rate it.
Okay.
So you're the only one that said no.
I think
That's
it's
not
gonna be
why I
Tom.
said that.
It's uncanny. It's uncanny.
think it's
what
me?
that we both sound like.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be Tom.
No.
Yeah,
That's
I
how you
think
guys
it's gonna
sound
be
like.
No.
you. Oh no.
Josh, who you got? Who's your money on?
I think that it is going to be Ali. No, just kidding. Caitlin.
Okay.
Who you got, Corey?
And who's Nerd on Nation got?
Well, Corey
yeah.
needs to guess, right?
But he kind of bends and bows depending on what the nation is, so he can make it.
I
even.
don't. But maybe I should start. I'm gonna balance it out. I'm gonna say
I did
Tom.
not hear start.
I'm gonna say Tom just to
But
balance
the
the
Snyder
two votes,
boy.
2 votes, Caitlin, 2 votes, Tom. The Nerd on Nation. Now, if you want to be a part of these polls that we spoke of earlier in the show, you could join the Nerd on Nation now. You get to vote on the Guess That Gator Grass-Fed Grumper Guesser. Did I get it pretty
Gatorade.
good? Did I do it right?
It's pretty great.
No.
You forgot gluten free.
And
Sorry.
Guardian.
Yes.
And Guardian.
Guardian, Guesser, gluten-free,
Every
grass-fed
G word
Gator
you can think
Grumper
of.
who drinks Gatorade.
Great.
And you get a shout out on the show if you get it correct. And the Nerd on Nation has spoken for Corey.
Wow.
That's exactly what I was
Oh.
like. Yeah, he can't pick himself, so.
Oh, did you see it already?
Of course I saw it.
Yeah.
That's how I was like,
so-
we got a poll.
Josh,
Yes.
you will be first, then me, and then Caitlin and Tom can figure out amongst themselves who will be
I'll
Yeah.
go last.
last. So there you go.
Well, now we go into the complete spoiler of that bad boy and go into that good girl. Into our first impressions and our initial reactions of Wytches.
I think Josh should go last
Yes.
because he suggested it. So I want to hear. I
yeah,
think
sure.
your explanation of your first experience should be the icing on the cake.
You want to go?
Since I'm already talking, yeah. I didn't read it. I didn't read it until this. Didn't avoid it or anything. I just didn't know too much about it. But I brought it with me on a trip I took on my sweet little iPhone here because I use Comixology. And
Tom immediately wants to shill, but he
triggered.
can't right now.
yeah, I just went to nerdon.tv/Comixology and
Wow.
downloaded it from there.
Wow.
Do you have a
Nice.
wonderful interface so you can
Oh
read?
my God. Corey, please continue.
And I was pretty hooked. You know, it's nice that I didn't start reading it until my trip, which was in October. So I was kind of already in the headspace of scary movies and stuff like that. And I am all for things that try to put some relevance behind myths or like base them somewhat in reality. So there were some moments in this that I really dug that kind of spoke to what I enjoy from these types of books, much like the Santa Claus that the Klaus that we read has some
Sam
moments where you're like, that's why that myth exists. So I dug that. And I'm a sucker for a good dad story. So this hit me right in the dads, right in the go dads.
Right in the godads.
Because I'm just
Right-
like, go
right-
dad the whole time.
Wow.
Right in the godads.
Go dad. So I really, really enjoyed this, and I cannot wait for any more that I
Boa.
can consume within this world, whether it be more books or a different form of entertainment media.
Caitlin?
So this was the first time I'd read this for this episode, and I love creepy things in the woods. I grew up in southern Indiana, and we were always traipsing through the woods, finding abandoned houses
Traipsing.
and cars and like gravestones and all sorts of random things that are just out there. So of course you're concocting stories of like, oh, what was here? Why is this here? Oh my. And so there was definitely that kind of feel going on with it. There's both there's story happening within the story coming from a writer, like there's the writer who's writing comics coming from a writer who's writing comics. And it was cute to like see how this story is like mainly about the daughter getting over something big, but also like it's kind of also mainly about the dad. Like I'm very intrigued by how everything has come together, but I have some nitpicks.
Of course you do.
That's why I
So
picked you.
I figured that's why.
That's why I picked you.
Yeah. So I'll go next because fucking this is Josh's pick, and
Yeah.
it's
And
a
he's gonna
good
go,
pick.
I love it. It is so
This should-
good.
This should be everyone's pick, in all honesty, because I think it's a really well told story, kind of like a little bit talking about what Corey and Josh have been saying, where it is a horror comic book, but it's more than that. It's kind of like you see the dressing on the salad, but underneath is where the heart of the story is, where it's like it's more of like a drama wrapped up in a horror. And I think that's where all stories, find common ground and how they can be enjoyable for everybody. That even if like subject matter, it's like, oh, I'm not into sci-fi, or I'm not into fantasy, or I'm not into horror. Like, where's the drama? And the drama is definitely well rooted in here, so that it gives you enough care about the characters, even if like the characters are unlikable at times. I'm pretty freaking sure I read this. I read issue 1 for when it first came out, and I remember so vividly that one of the first few images you see, and it's a very striking image. And then it ending, and I was like, okay, that was it. And then David Barry from the Capes Crusaders, part of the Nerd On Fam, you should go listen to now, talked about it a lot. And I remember him and I went to one of my first free comic book days back in Sacramento at Empire's Comics. And I'm pretty sure he was talking about it at that point. It's not lost on me the love and importance for independent comic books. So there is a little bit of like a beer goggles, roasting glasses I have for something that's like Scott Snyder owns this. Image does not own the comic book. So I really enjoy like a good, well-told story this way that's new and original and risky and shouldn't have been as successful as it was. So
Comics
I
Explained
really
did a whole like segment about like what you just talked about, like the history and all that kind of stuff and why it's important. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I love the book. I think if you're starting to get into comic books and you're not into the superhero thing and you want to see good storytelling, and you need something like that within the horror genre, I think this is really, really good step. So that's me.
Nice. So for me, I this past year have gotten really, really a lot more into comic books, and one writer I found was Scott Snyder, and I just I am just completely smitten with Scott Snyder. American Vampire. I haven't read his like Batman storylines yet. David and I were talking about it, and he was like, "Oh man, it's chef's kiss." So after I finished reading American Vampire, I was like, "I need more. I need some more Scott Snyder. What do I got? What do I got?" And Tom was like, "Hey, you should check out Wytches." So I did, and I loved it. It's a horror comic, but it's not. It's I really love
So much more.
It's so much more. We'll get into this, but I really love the internal journey that's going on, the journey, and the relationships. Yeah, there's a lot to it, but I am going to say I liked it.
Oh, wow.
No, I loved it. And I think that everybody should read it. It's super good. Even Stephen King says it's fabulous, a triumph.
You see the artist one book? The artist one book. So for the audio listeners, Josh pulled up a trade paperback of volume 1. There's an artist one book where it's like about like a poster size. So it's like a foot tall. Or no, it's like 2 feet tall. And it's the original inks from the artist. And there's no color in there. So you can just like read it and it's like huge.
That's pretty cool.
Anyways, so now we're going to our next 2 topics, which are going to be our segments, which are going to be our brief synopsis and then our production. And our brief synopsis is brought to you by
Corn Powders. So, everything you thought you knew about the witches is wrong.
That excited, eh?
Please just
read it
like
that.
They are much darker and they are much more horrifying.
Wow.
Witches take the mythology of witches to a far creepier, bone-chilling place that readers have never dared to venture before. When the Rooks family moves to a remote town in Litchfield to escape the haunting trauma, they're hopeful about starting over. But something evil is waiting for them in the woods just beyond town, watching from the trees, ancient and hungry.
I want Plan B to sell the rights to this film to Hallmark.
Guys, I can pitch the film for you. Plan B. Hire me. I will pitch it for you.
I would love nothing.
So there you go. That's it.
And now our production.
Production. So the publication is Image Comics, who has done The Walking Dead, Invincible, and Spawn.
Hell yeah.
The writer is Scott Snyder, another Snyder. Voodoo Heart, American Vampire, Batman New 52, and Dark Knight's Metal. The artists are a penciler and inker who is Jock, aka Matt Simpson, who did The Losers, Judge Dredd, and Wolverine. And then the colorist is Matt Hollingsworth, who did Eternals, Catwoman, and Preacher.
Yes.
And then the publication date was October 2014 through March of 2015. The series order was 6 issues, and it has sold over 90,000 copies on just the first issue, and has sold film rights to Plan B.
So quite successful. And just Josh and I were kind of talking about it. Now we're in spoiler full.
Very full of spoilers.
Yes.
This shouldn't have sold so well. It's Image comic books. So people who aren't familiar with comic books, Image was created from people who were getting tired of how Marvel was treating them. So these are people, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee. I keep forgetting other people's names, but those were like the 2 big hitters. I think Rob Liefeld is part of that. I can't be sure. Don't quote me on that last one. But I know for a fact that Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee, because Jim Lee was like the golden child. He was like the ones like, guys, he did X-Men. And he sold like the biggest helped sell the biggest comic books with Chris Claremont. And so with Image comic books, it was the third option. You had Marvel and DC and then all these little guys, but then you had these kind of like celebrity comic book writers starting to write for Image. And the thing that they wrote within their bylaws, and this is why this is the important thing, and that's why at the beginning with the show notes, I say it's we say that Scott Snyder's Wytches is because Image Comics does not own your property. And it's very, very important that like the characters
really
own
cool.
things.
You should check out a Bill of Rights for comic creators.
Yeah.
It's 12 points of like
Declarations.
Like the first one is the rights to full ownership of what we fully create. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and you have the right to market to different buyers at all times. And like that's the thing with Image Comics. They are trying to be this place where they want to give the creators and the artists full creative control and believe in their projects. They're kind of like what I think Annapurna try to be for the film industry. But that being said, there have been mishaps and stuff like that. But it's funny because when they first started out, you had all these like big superhero comic book guys, and so this used to be kind of like the hub for that. And then over the decades, it's turned into where you get stories like witches and sex criminals. So it's like stories that like aren't hero related, but they do have something to do with something fantastical. So it's quite wonderful. And David Barry has made me into an acolyte for indie comics now. So anyways, so now we go into our favorite parts, favorite characters, and our qualms, and then our rating. So who wants to go first, baby?
I'll go first.
I will. Josh will.
I knew they were going to fight over it.
First and foremost, it's more of the artwork and the design and the colors. This book is not just a story; it's an experience, which it's cool to see. Also, in the back of the trade, there's actually like a breakdown of the process of how Jock does it, and it includes a process where it goes from digital to physical, and then he actually hand paints the like water splotches. So I think that's really, really, really cool. It just every turn of the page was just an experience, because I'm also a big fan of like kind of like that color scheme. I mean, it's almost nerd on color scheme, kind of purple, pink, blue.
Didn't see that. Didn't connect that together. I didn't want to be connected with blood.
Yeah. There's just some really cool just that. That's my first thing. There's lots, but that's my
Corey,
first
go
thing.
next.
Like I said, I really enjoy things that put mythology in what?
With dads.
With dads. No, that just explain like root some mythology and some sort of realism, with whether it be realism in our world or realism in that world, whatever it may be, it grounds it in something. And so the witch is growing ginger on a tree, and that's where the gingerbread myth came from. Gingerbread house myth came from. I got a little shiver when I read that. I was like, "Ooh, I love this."
Your pants get a little tighter.
Yeah. They did. I thought that was a cool little nod to that. And then when he's going through all the different items that the woman gave Clara gave him, and the policeman is just like, yeah, whatever you want, sure.
Go for it.
I guess that'll work. That'll hurt him. Yeah, okay. And he's like, why are you telling me all this? He goes, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter at all. That whole moment was really cool for me. I really enjoyed that little bit.
It was a good subversion of like, now he's got the guy and he's gonna have to interrogate him. He's like, no, I'll fucking take you there, baby.
Yeah, and then like explaining that the rat bullets, because it puts protein into them, is effective, and the extra bright flares hurt their eyes and keep them away from it, and then has the stink that he has to like put in his mouth as well. I thought that was all very, very cool. And how what the cauldron actually is, like, it's not an actual cauldron, but it's a in the ground. It's like this hot molten place.
Like how hot springs work. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you always So little things like that along the way that are just like, our stories as humans we've told them differently, and they've evolved over time, where we actually think it's like a cauldron and a real gingerbread house, but here's the reality of where those things were based. Is really cool.
It felt a little Del Toro-ish in that sense. We're like, this is the troll market. I was like, okay. But talking about the stink, I was in preparation for this, I was watching a comic pop video, which I never heard of until now. But there's not a lot of people talking about Wytches as much as they should be. But they were talking about like, so does he? It's two guys and a girl, and they were like, so do you have to like put the stink in your butt in case you fart? And I was just like,
oh my god!
I just thought it was like, but maybe just like, I just thought it was
like, these are the real questions.
You went,
it's always
wait.
It's always that level of like reality of like,
And
you
up your nose too, I guess.
One of my favorite
breathe out
parts.
of your nose, you'd have to put it up your nostrils. And
Yeah, dude, and put in your earwax. You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
because you burp out of your ears.
One of
your
my
ears were mouths. They taste
like butter.
Nope.
One of my favorite parts was just the beginning. That's where you get the first little bit of subversion, where you start with the Char family or Chaz family, where the fuck. You have the mom in a tree, and that's like terrifying. It's just like, imagine everyone listening right now. All you spoiler-full people who haven't read it but don't care about spoilers.
If you're claustrophobic, don't listen to this next part.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, to me, it was more like she had become one with the tree when I first read it, and I was like, oh my God. That was terrifying, right? So imagine a tree in the woods but then there's a face of someone you know in there. But that face also is missing a nose because who knows what happened to that? Who knows what happened to that?
They ate it.
And then so there's a moment where she's there and there's a boy and she recognized the boy. It's her son. She's like, get that rock and break me out of here. And she's trying to get out of the tree. And he just bashes her face. And I was like, oh my God. And he says, pledge is pledge. I was like, oh, has anyone watched Identity?
Yeah.
You know, this is not a spoiler. I'm not going to say when it happens, but what is it? All whores go to hell. I'm like, oh my God. This is like the cold-hearted, terrible things people say. And that's why I say monsters, that's within their nature. But people choosing to do evil, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, witches is
So
what
where does Michael Myers lie on that scale?
He's nothing. I don't he doesn't make sense. Fuck you, Steves. I love you, Steves.
He's great. He's pure evil. Concentrated evil.
He's a
Anyway,
human being. Anyways.
so that makes him
Caitlin?
worse then in your eyes.
It should be.
I'm definitely on the beginning train because it tells you so much about like what this comic is going to be.
Oh. I was like the beginning train.
I'm on the train of people who like the beginning.
Yes. I got it.
yeah.
That's my own fault.
But yeah, it's just you're like, oh man, oh no, he's got to get his mom out. He's gonna bash her face in.
Well, it was just so violent the way he did it. And then when the fingers came in and grabbed her and her face gets twisted, I'm like,
Now, I need to, like, mind you, I started reading this because the way that I read comics most of the time is comicsology. But that's how I read this originally. And then I started, anyway, I was reading this at like 1 a.m. in a really dark room.
Oh,
and when I first started reading it, I was like, well,
this was a bad idea, wasn't it?
I read mine. So my iPad died. It's like dead kaput. I'm going to buy a new one. But I read mine on Comixology on a computer. And holy shit, that was just as great, everyone. And I haven't had the privilege to do that. But that being said, one thing I really did enjoy about this book, I mean, okay, so we're going to talk about it. The fucking relationship between the Charlie and Sailor. Holy shit. Like, and to me, got to a point where I was reading, I was like, oh, this is why Josh picked this book. I know why. Because it's like the dad, the thing is, the girl who's scared of everything with the dad who blames himself for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And those two clashing faults create this like wonderful, realistic love for each other of like, I love you because you're a good kid. I love you because blah, blah. It's the learned love where the father wasn't really ready to be the father he needed to be by the end of the book. But you realize like the story has two timelines. And the story, and you know, it took me like the second read to really understand like, oh, the comic book he's writing about wishes being made but like
Full circle, baby.
Yeah, how he talks about like, you know, how his story is much more about his daughter. And it's so like at the same time you have Charlie talking about his daughter within his comic book, but the comic book is also talking about him. And so there is like what Caitlin was talking about was like a comic book writer writing about a comic book writer. And there is this metatextual conversation of like the stories that we're being told right now are kind of the stories that we're living at the same time. And there is just a beautiful kind of poetic dance that happens between the present tense and the past tense, much like a Nolan film. And that's why I feel like reading the book was so like cinematic in that way, where it's like, it's not like, oh, look at the $300 million, but it was more like, wow, so this scene's going to happen, and then they're going to cut back to this scene, and that's going to inform what happened 2 scenes ago, and then we're going to get further on the story. Where's she at? Okay, that's what happened to Annie. Okay, like, so every time, like, you got more information, you're like, I remember getting ready to read this for the first time or the entirety for the first time for this episode, and I was just like, oh my god, 190 pages, oh my god. And then I started it one night, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah,
that was really quick.
It's the fastest read you'll ever get through because and then by the end you're like, why isn't there more of this? What have you done?
Yeah, it's 6 issues, but it feels so short, baby.
Yeah, you could be done in like an hour and a half, I feel like.
Who else?
entire
Who else got
volume.
some favorite parts?
I really enjoy the onomatopoeia of this. The teeth. Like it's what like I said before, that reading this is it's also an experience, and like with that, it's like you heard it, you experienced that noise when it came up on the page, like, and you're in the moment, like when she's hearing it out her window, and like all that kind of that creepy ass when they're in the woods. And somebody who's, I'm afraid of the dark, and I'm like imagining like being out in the woods, and then all of a sudden you hear, and you're like, nah, take me, I'm done.
No, dog. I'm good.
So I'm gonna put myself in a vulnerable place and talk about something in my childhood. So when I was young, when my parents got divorced, my mom was, still trying to get an apartment and all, or she had an apartment. It was like a dingy small place, but it was one bedroom. So we all slept in the same room. Me and my sister slept on the floor. But I remember hearing my mom grind her teeth at night.
Oh,
and that's what that kind of sound became a little bit, because it's a little creepier than. I was like, oh, someone's just cold. Who's cold? Does someone need a sweater?
No, are you
And then you
kidding?
hear, I'm like, what is
You shouldn't have
for some
stayed
reason,
in the pool so long, Susan.
I think of Parent Trap, and then the woman who was like slapping the sticks together when I hear,
Yeah.
but then if you think of it like teeth
For the
grinding,
mountain lions.
you guys have
There's no
heard when
mountain
someone
lions
sleeps
out
and
here.
teeth grinds, right?
Yes.
It's like it's like, oh, it's a very creepy, unnerving
I don't
sound
like
to
it.
go to bed to as a child. So hearing that out in the woods loud enough, I'm like, oh hell nah, dog.
oh hell no.
Man, I was really intrigued by like the Annie and Sailor relationship too. Because the way
boy?
that she talks about Annie, like she hates her enough to pull a knife on her, but then she says things like, you took Annie away.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I feel like if they were to grow up, they'd actually end up being friends. Like
or the opposite. They were friends when they were children. And then
maybe.
one girl, I forget if they said Sailor was gay or not. Yeah, Sailor's gay.
Yeah.
And one
Because
girl
Annie
was
says
gay.
something about I hate something, blah, gay, whatever.
Yeah, something like that. And so,
But
and
she
Annie,
said style rather than like saying that outright. That's what she was. She just said
Yeah.
like her aesthetic.
and I feel like that happens, but there's always that chance of like being young and being close and then spreading apart and then coming back together. But
Right. But there's a lot of like, there's a lot of story happening within the two of them too. And that she's like, she hated Annie enough to pull a knife on her to want to hurt her, but also is like mad that she was taken away. So
Yeah.
it's,
I mean,
which
her
I almost
sanity
wonder if
was
it's a
taken
little bit
away.
of like Stockholm or something, like of like, you were the person who gave me the most attention and now you're gone.
Well, also, she has that part with her dad. She's like, I wanted it to happen, so did I make her go away?
Right.
She faults herself
beating the
like,
shit out of her,
in her
molesting
mind,
her and stuff.
that all happened. Like everyone just thinks that Annie ran away. The rest of the world thinks that Annie ran away, but Sailor saw Annie get pulled into a tree,
Right.
and she has that terrible memory. Like maybe I'm evil. Maybe I'm the one that did this. And so I think there's a little bit of relief of like the evil has a face and I know what it is, but also this evil that only I knew about caused me and my family to have to move here to a place that I don't know, and everyone calls me the murder girl. Like,
Right.
So it's that part though at the very end with the friend, she's like,
Told you
I
you're a
told you
big
you were
deal."
a big deal. Oh my
Oh.
god! Like there was that moment of like that horror movie trope where it's like someone's gonna say something really fucked up, and I was like, that's it. That's the line.
There it be.
I love that. Corey?
Other favorite parts?
Yeah.
I mean, I liked a lot of it. The nothing hit me quite as hard as that the rooting the myths
Gingerbread.
in reality type of stuff. I do remember being like, what the fuck, when the mom was like, who's Sailor? And I was like, God damn it.
That was
that was
messed
kind
up.
of the other moment where I turned that page and I was like, shit's gonna go down.
And when she
then
gets up.
Then it did. Yeah, she gets up and having the list of names and seeing Petal written in all red and big on the side was like, oh, there it is. I knew it. I fucking knew it. So just little stuff like that, but nothing that hit me quite as much as that the gingerbread house and the cauldron and all the different tools to defeat him. I did like I really enjoyed, of course, Tom's gonna make fun of me for this, the relationship between the dad and Sailor as well, and how kind of immature it was at times to make sure that she was happy. Like he was willing to make the dumb, where would you stick the dynamite in its butt?
In a butt?
Yeah, kind of thing, just to make her laugh and to make her feel like,
But
you
it comes into such a good full circle at the very end. She's like, I'm going to get away because he's like, she's like, I'm going to get away because I'm the greatest mythological slayer in the world.
And she's saying it to herself in the cauldron and stuff. And
yeah,
their relationship was really, really well done. It felt very fleshed out, and I feel like the writer at least knew someone or had the same kind of relationship with their dad, because it felt very fleshed out.
Josh can fill in some of the blanks of this, but like at the end of the book, for everyone listening, volume 1, Scott Snyder talks about where the kind of inspiration came from, and he'd watched Roald Dahl's Wytches, the first one, and him and his friend were really obsessed. They would go to this lake house that his parents had, and they would just go around the woods like Caitlin style and try to look for witches. And one day his friend like started screaming in the middle of nowhere, and it was like, go away. And he had said he saw something that was like taller than a human, thinner than a human. It didn't look human at all. And that's where this kind of came from. But now, since Scott Snyder's an adult and has a son, he's been taking his kid to this lake house. And I think that's where it kind of comes from, of like, I'm realizing I'm retreading the childhood steps that I got to do.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm doing it with my dad, with my kid.
Well,
so
he
there's
also, as an adult, went back to the place that they used to. There was an abandoned like meat truck out in the middle of the woods. So he actually, as an adult, like 15, 20 years later, went on a run and went by himself into the woods. And then he looked up and saw the witch that his friend saw. That was this big, bony, skeletal figure. And then he like blinked and it had gone, and had become this tree. And he was like, the concept of the waiting and the witches always being there is what that came from. He was like, I didn't know, like the more horrifying thing was the witches had been there the entire time we were there. They just hadn't done anything, but it had been waiting there my entire life.
My
ever
life
came
passed
back.
by, but for that witch, it was 2 moments of kid was
Right.
there, now the kid's an adult.
And he also said that about the book too. Like, this book was waiting to be written this entire time. I just had to sit down and write it.
Yeah.
Same as going out and finding the witch.
Yeah.
We got a runner's high and thought he saw a witch, but it was a tree.
Sure.
Just like Inside Out.
Yeah.
My another favorite part is the basically almost like the whole cauldron section. I mean, there's like a full page spread where he throws the match into the cavern,
Oh,
and he's
God.
like, he just
He's
wants
the rooted
something
ones.
good. He's like, give me some sort of good surprise, and then
And
it's
it's
just
just
it reveals all of the witches, and you're like,
The growing witches that are like
well.
growing out of the walls and shit.
Yeah.
But that whole scene, like, it's really, I mean, for a comic book, it's a really, it does keep your heart like pumping. Like, you're like, oh shit, oh no, oh dang, and then they get out, and then it still goes to shit, and you're like,
Nothing
Yeah.
has to be. Nothing could be easy.
no,
Oh, never. Man, I gotta give a shout out to the entire part with Clara.
Yeah, I was gonna say Clara was pretty baller, and I just no
Clara
legs.
was super baller. She, as
and
a
a witch
child,
hunter.
she was
Oh.
pulled in, got her legs eaten, got out, somehow evaded that entire town and all the forest filled with witches, got herself prosthetics, was like still going back to the town to figure out how everything worked, and fighting her entire life until she just, it was like, I'm basically dead at this point. So I'm at least
That
going to help
fir-
this family before I go.
That first introduction with her outside the house, and she had coughs up her teeth. I was like, when you first read that, I was like, oh my god, is that like the ringleader, or is that like a familiar for the witches? And then you go into the entire the book, and you find out more about her. Like, oh no,
I know.
oh no.
But, any other favorite parts before we go to favorite characters?
The last thing I'll say is just the journey of Charlie. You getting the backstory of like his addictions, and then kind of moving forward, and as he's grown as a man, and then kind of coming at the end when he makes the choice to, defend Sailor instead of like going with his wife, and making this like Sophie's choice decision of like, let's just let the witches take our daughter, and then we can make a new one. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
It'll be
that's
fine.
totally.
Yeah, I
same.
gotta say that twist came and I was like, oh, fuck you.
Man, also, children are terrifying in this book. You start with a child murdering his mother,
Mhm.
and then you have the child in the hospital bed, and then
Oh,
the entire
yeah.
school filled with children that are like, "You gonna get eaten," and
Yeah.
Well,
like
kids are terrible.
kids are terrifying, but in this book especially.
You smell like someone pledged. I'm like, oh, what did
Yeah.
you really run over that night?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I
The
thought that
kid
was
that
baller.
like is drinking on that witch juice in his veins and just being the evil incarnate before he's even like 12.
Hell yeah. Corey, any last favorite parts before we go?
No.
Favorite characters. We'll do. I feel like if we do two,
Two.
it's the main characters.
I only have
Not
one,
for everybody.
so.
have one?
how about we do two. One of them could be Charlie and Sailor, and the other one has to not be that person.
Easy.
Do it.
Go ahead, Corey.
If it's so easy.
A dad and Clara.
Oh, okay.
Done.
Dad and Clara.
Mhm.
Josh.
Yeah, it's the same.
Dad and Clara.
Copy paste.
Tom.
Charlie, Clara. No, I was gonna go Caitlin.
Oh, I said Tom first.
I'll say. I mean, fuck. I really do love, but I do really enjoy how you know what? Fucking, it's Sailor and Reginald.
Reginald.
Reg. It's
So
the guy who
Reginald-
dies. It's the front.
Yeah. The guy who works at the publishing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who helped him out.
House.
He was such a good guy, and then he was
He
like,
was a
get
great
behind me.
dude.
He was trying to protect Sailor, and then my bad.
He got chitted.
And then he's like, I can't see what's going on.
They
I was like,
did
and that's the
something.
thing where I'm like, they don't really like escape through the tree. They like become part of the tree.
I think they
I
like
think they're pulled into the tree.
they're pulled into the tree. They can see out of it, but it's like hollow on the inside. So he did move. So like he's still capable of moving around, but not very far.
If I remember, and please educate me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he said, I can't see. They did something to my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
but you could see his mouth, but you can't see his eyes.
You could see his mouth, and then you could see his eye because
Oh,
he had like
see one
moved.
eye.
Oh, okay. Because I was just like, oh, what did they do? And so that's the thing that freaks me out a little bit is like, now it's kind of like the Thing, where like it could just touch you and start assimilating into you. Where like they could do that with the tree, where it's like now you're part of this tree and you're stuck, unless you want to
See-
start cutting off parts of your body.
Because what gave it away for me is basically those are the escape routes. Like anytime you see a hollowed out tree with the like
That's your
open
exit.
knot, that's your exit. Because that's how the dad
They get
and
out.
Sailor got out, was they busted out of one of
Got it.
those hollow trees. So I think it's just under
Yeah. It's
there.
their
they have
travel
footing,
system.
and then they yank
It's
you.
the witch's travel system.
Yeah.
I as much as I love Charlie's growth, in terms of horror genre, of the final girl kind of feel and all that stuff, I do like a well put together female protagonist who has a trauma and it isn't cured by like some fucking romantic interest. And obviously both of those characters, Charlie and Sailor, have to have each other in order to fulfill their character arcs.
Mhm.
But I just
I also
kinda
like that
her.
she's not strong by default. Like we go into the story of her being kind of like
choice.
a weak and fragile
She
character.
passes out when she gets too scared.
Yeah, and when she's in the cauldron, she's pulling everything that she's learned from her father, of like from Charlie, of
Having a
of
mask,
how to stay
taking her
strong
glasses.
in those
Don't
in those
pass out. Don't
moments.
pass out.
Yeah,
So I really enjoyed that aspect because the thing I really like about Charlie is that like he's a character that gets shit done, but the thing I like about Sailor is that she's a survivor, and there isn't a fucking car that blasts in here to save you. It's like, oh, thank God. Like, no, she was gonna have to get out one way or the other, but I'm glad that in order for both of them to do the thing, So yeah, Sailor and Reg for me. Caitlin?
For me, it is Clara and Sailor.
Okay, and then
And because Sailor gets to be the one that Clara could have been.
Get away with
Because
everything intact.
Clara lost her legs. She got the mites. She had to figure out how to make all the things that are in that knapsack. And Sailor is getting the knapsack with like at least some experience with everything, knowing that the entire town is evil, having the list or being able to recover the list later, you know. She has everything she needs to come in with a shotgun and a loaded car and like clear out the witches and actually like save the day. But that only happened because of Clara and the sacrifices that she made in her life.
I'm going to make another Capeless Crusader proud and happy. Kaylin, you should probably read Hack Slash.
Oh, I know of Hack Slash.
Yeah. Because for everyone who's listening, Hack Slash, imagine any of the final girls from any of your horror films that survived. And now all she does is go to other horror films.
Worlds and destroy them.
And kill the killers.
Yeah.
And protect all the people who are apparently going to die. And it's pretty ball.
like-
It's that, again, it's the ownership taking I can take my traumas and then make them and become a champion because of them, you know?
Yeah.
Or
It has a very like Buffy the Vampire Slayer feel, but
So.
a little bit more dark and gritty.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Dope.
So everyone's favorite characters now to qualms. Kaylin had to bring it up at the beginning of the freaking episode, so let's hear it.
So for me, it was just, I needed a little more explanation. Like for me, an entire town just being evil wasn't enough. Like that didn't make enough sense to me. Like they had grounded the mythological stuff for like really, really well. And I super enjoyed that. But for me, like an entire town of old evil people was just like, didn't quite sit right. I just wanted a little bit more explanation of like maybe the witches influence them to feel that way, and because they're on the grounds or something like
cop
that.
said that. He said they can smell their needs and they like appeal to them as like as the
Yeah,
devil
they give
would
them
with
whatever
a
they want.
contract.
Right. But
and it's been built into their history for generations or whatever, the town's history.
I get that, but just like knowing the pile of clothing that's there too, like there were just a couple of little loose threads that I'm like, if I pull this, like there's no way that many people could have died over the last, you know, however many years and then completely
Hundreds
have
of
gotten
years?
away with it.
Yeah. well, because they make
there
you
was
forget.
a lot of like,
That's why. That's how they got away with it. They make you forget.
Yeah, you
The
drink a
people.
little potion and you forget. But also, like, I think what the police officer says, like, these people aren't missed.
right.
They aren't the missed kids because they all get taught to forget them and they drink a thing. But to that point of like, there's one centralized place for witches. I feel like I kind of see that, but also there is a sense of that I really enjoyed part of the story where the mother Lucy, you know, she hits a witch in her car.
Right.
And it's because of, and they explain it in the book where Charlie and the darkness that he kind of bred within himself of wanting his daughter to not be so kind of neurotic and anxious, like lured these witches from that place. So it's like they're centralized there, but it doesn't mean they can't go out. But I think so far within this town, they've just kept this well-held secret where like the police officer's like, cut me open, you could see the rings. I'm like, this bitch hella old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it kind of felt like people come check in, they don't check out. And you're like, oh shit.
And I guess they like kill the people that don't come on board that are in the town.
I think they become the non-missed.
They become the pledged.
right. Yeah,
non-missed
it
people.
just that didn't feel
Like Bates Motel.
And I would say, like, I don't know, like, and to flip that, right? Let's say like volume 2 comes out and it's like, here's another town. I feel like that same kind of like logic application, you could be like, well, how hasn't anyone found out about like these different places of witches?
right.
Versus if it's just one place that's kind of off the map, who knows?
Yeah, I think I just needed like maybe one more sentence of explanation, and that would have like put the bow on top for me, and I'd be like, okay. But there just wasn't an extra little linchpin thing that that closed that for me.
It's kind of like in Twilight where Forks, Washington, this is where the Cullens live. And it's like, where are all the other vampires?
Yeah.
I feel you. Any other qualms?
The other thing for me was that the while I really liked the aspects of the art style, it was too chaotic for me to the point where I didn't understand what I was looking at. At some points that I felt were pivotal for me to be understanding what I'm looking at. Because it'd be one thing if they were like, it's so horrific, my mind can't process what I'm looking at, if there was something like that. But there were so many instances where things were not defined completely with the line work. And then there was like blotches of paint over top of it. And then another thing on top of it. And I was just like, what am I looking at? I know that it's like a horrific scene, but it just was like, and I know that it's an art choice and that's okay.
It's a style.
So it's more of a personal qualm and not a qualm that's like, this
bad.
makes it suck. It's just like, for me, it detracted because I spent more time wondering why I couldn't understand what I was looking at rather than being like, oh, this is like part of the thing and then flipping the page.
I'll piggyback off that and say, like, I had a couple difficulty time. I had a little difficulty reading.
A couple
difficulty
time
to even say the word. When I was reading, I was like, I see it, and I think to me, it's kind of like sushi, like where you're supposed to eat it in one bite, typically, right? And it forces you to choose slower. And so with this, it felt like to me, and this is someone who's like studied avant-garde filmmaking that has no narrative. So it forces you to kind of just ingest the imagery over the storytelling. And so when I read this, I was just like, I can't fucking see. And then I was like, okay, let me just fucking stop, put my seat back, and just look at the image for like 10 seconds. And then I'm like, okay, now I can move on and do that. So in terms of like a windowed entry, like it's a little higher than anyone who's like, this is my first time reading comics. I don't know right from left and top and to bottom, So it's like, there was that sense of like challenge for me. But the other qualm I would probably have is just, I think this is like the stupidest, smallest thing. But I was like, but why did the deer die? At the first issue, the deer comes into the house. It's like, we have a visitor. And then it just like opens its mouth, chomps off its tongue and dies.
But that's not even the same deer.
But why? What do you mean
the witches are fucking with her.
Yeah.
She never hit a deer.
The story is the whole like I killed a deer in a car. It was a hit, like that's what happened in the car accident, all that shit. But
she hit a witch.
To me, it was a witch, and so like this deer, it makes more sense later on. But then for me, I was like, but why did the deer have to die? But obviously, it's a grim story. So like the deer dies. So,
it's like a message they're sending.
Yeah, they're saying like we're gonna catch up to you. We're gonna find out, and like that's what Lucy talks about. It's like I thought this would have been enough. I thought this pledge would have been enough, but it's once I pledged this person, then I was able to walk. Now I can have a new child. Blah blah, and it's like, but I've just seen Bambi too much. I don't want more. I don't want any more deer to die.
I can be on board with that.
Any other qualms?
It's a witch deer anyway.
Oh, true.
It starts like chittering and chattering.
That makes it. They apparated it, and then they.
Well, it starts. Its eyes. If you look at the page again, its eyes turn to witch eyes, and it starts making the sound.
Oh,
yeah, because it starts off as a doe, doesn't it? And then transforms into a buck and then dies.
Yes.
Oh man, fuck that deer then.
No, I mean I don't think it becomes a buck. I think it's still a doe, but it does bite its tongue off, and then its eyes turn completely red, and it starts going.
Oh hell no. Man, that guy could go die some more then. I don't give a damn.
I don't give a care.
Any other qualms?
Yeah. Mine's not a real one. I felt like with the power of the pledge spray, the dad probably didn't have to sack himself. Like, could have slapped the mom with it like he did. Like, there you go. You're the pledge now. And then run outside with his daughter and then sprayed everything, and they could have survived together. But then it wouldn't be as sad.
I think
it's not like a real qualm. It didn't take away from it.
No, I think to that point, quote unquote, it's because he was like at gunpoint, right?
And he panicked.
And maybe he needed the kamikaze and have it on my face for the shock value for Lucy to be like, what have you done?
I guess.
Yeah. But I get you. I feel you.
Yeah.
Any other qualms?
No.
Josh? Not
I
one.
don't have any qualms.
That's why Josh
at
picked
all.
this one.
I mean, the thing is like I'm thinking about like what you guys are talking about, like with the artwork, and I'm wondering because I read it on Comixology on the app has the
Panel by panel.
setting that I like of panel to panel, and for me, it allows you to focus on panel by panel, and so like if you look at it
That's
full
how I read it.
page,
Yeah.
like some of the pages, yeah, I can see it's chaotic, but I didn't have that experience, so
There's a
Okay,
really
I didn't
good,
either. It's a 50-50, Josh.
yeah,
There's a really good image that happens because it doesn't go by the normal, 3x3, where it's like 2 panels up top and then a giant image of like the skull,
yeah.
which I thought was really good. So it's like, to me, panel by panel might even be detrimental at certain points. But I'm kind of trying to allude this to like, if you were just pick up the trade paperback in a comic book store, this is kind of the experience you would have. You wouldn't be able to be like, I'm going to cover it with a brown paper bag, panel by panel.
I mean, I flip between panel by panel and full page. Like if I didn't understand something, I would actually go down to panel by panel and be like, actually, this makes less sense, so I'm going to go to full page. And then
I went full page.
would go
The
back
thing
and
I like
forth.
about full page is that also you get really long images that go
Yeah.
vertically, and then it's like, oh, this.
I back out. I mean, when you get the long
bleakness.
images, it does it for you and then zooms in, but I back out almost every...
Every
after I'm done
page,
reading it.
every episode.
Welcome to the
Every
Comixology review episode.
Anyway.
Now to rating.
So, Josh,
Yeah,
5.
you go first, Josh. Oh, 5?
Five.
What?
Okay, well,
Oh,
that
wow.
was it. Wow. Easy button.
I never saw it.
Someone press the easy button.
all right, next is me. I wrote a 4.6.
Are you going to keep that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I always keep what I write in the beginning.
Okay. Oh,
I don't change it.
hey. I just
Just
had
letting
to
you know
ask.
how I function.
I just had to
I
ask,
write it
babe.
down before we record, and then I'm like, I've thought this through.
It's like a list.
So 4.6 for me. It's really, really good. I will be reading this again. I can't wait for more. I want there to be a movie. It's. I didn't want it to end. I really didn't want it to end.
Kaylin?
4.5.
Ooh.
It's
Sorry.
I'm bothered by my 4.5 because I want it to actually be more like a 4.7, 4.8. But the art really did make it complicated for me, and I really did need a couple more sentences for me to be like fully reeled into it. And I'm
Guys,
like bothered because it's so good.
I want you guys to times this by 20.
Okay.
You'd be at like a 94 or 90%. So
Yeah, I know.
chill.
It's not that
Yeah.
it's bad. It's just I don't like that I'm bothered by things in it because
Well,
it's good. But
change the book or change yourself.
wow.
So, I mean, or you could be okay with it.
Those
For
are
me,
the two options.
it's a 5. It's a hard 5, baby. Like it's an independent comic book. It's short. It's contained. If he never wrote one more page of Wytches, I'd be totally okay with it because great things end. Classics
Sure,
become
yeah.
classics because they're
I
contained.
just want more.
I want more. Of course I want more. I
Well,
want a
of
good
course.
time. But
I'd be okay with it ended here.
if it ended, I would be just like, God damn you. Can you make like wolves now? Wolves, like 2 V's, OLVS, and then there's that. And then you have American Vampire, then you have Wytches, and you have wolves, and then you could do like Zambo, or I don't know. But just, yeah, it'd be, just do a whole horror thing. But Josh, you haven't read any Dark Knight's Metal? You'd have to read all of New 52 Batman and then get
Anyway,
to Dark Knight's
so-
Metal. So,
that means
but
Caitlin's
wait,
grump of the
Corey
week.
had a question for me.
Well,
Caitlin is the grump of the week. Just wanted to get that out there. No
yeah,
one
yeah.
voted for you on Nerd on Nation, so no shout outs.
But how many, you got so many votes, Corey, baby.
I did. Y'all were wrong. No, I wanted to ask a question. I said, who would you
yeah.
want to direct this if it were a film, which apparently it will be eventually?
Maybe.
Who would you want to be the director? And I started saying before we started recording in the digital green room, as Tom calls it, I feel like Guillermo would be too easy of a choice. I feel like it'd be too easy to pick Guillermo del Toro because these creatures already look like his
his babies.
creations in the comic book. So I'm going to say he's off the table.
Josh, since you're very intimate with the subject matter.
I would almost say Jordan Peele.
That was who I was going to pick. I was going to pick Jordan
I
Peele
would-
because of what I've seen in Lovecraft Country now.
Yeah.
There is one episode of Lovecraft Country that actually be like, I don't want to watch this before I go to bed. Like, I was really surprised. I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually scared to go to bed after watching this.
Like
I just
feel
don't want
like
to
he
dream
would-
about it.
I feel like he would also, I mean, it would look great. I think he would give it the respect it deserves. And I think it's simple enough, so to speak. Like, you don't need somebody like Guillermo del Toro, like from a creature creation like Guillermo, like what you were saying, Corey.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
I think you call him. You be sure to
And,
call him and you invite
He
him
can
to
executive
set.
produce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Get
Guillermo
Doug Jones
Del
as
Toro
the
presents.
Witches, right? Doug
Yeah.
Jones would be playing the witch. We
Yeah.
all agree on that. He'd be the main witch.
Oh my God. Yep.
Uh,
But yeah, that's a good option too. I think for me, I have two in mind that I would want, and one
Sterling
of them
K.
is
Brown as the dad.
well, no, I was gonna say as the directors.
I know.
Oh,
I'm just
but as
saying.
the-
I'm great
Sterling K. Brown,
casting Jordan Peele's movie.
100% Sterling K. Brown would be.
The dad.
For the directors, for me, it would be either James Wan.
Ooh.
I'm a huge fan of The Conjuring, and the
Ooh.
aesthetic he creates within those films are amazing.
I'm going to Kevin Smith this and say, I want to watch your movie.
Or David S. Sandberg, Pony Smasher.
Ooh.
would be really great as far
Another
as
good
like
one.
visuals of effects go. He's really amazing with playing with the camera within worlds and using amazing practical effects that you think are CG. But they're really
the
actually
thing
in
that
camera.
David Sandberg is really freaking good with is silence. And
Yeah.
then you see something and then it goes away and there's still silence. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, hell nah, dog. And that's what I'm
So
saying.
those are my
Oh.
director choices. James Wan or David S. Sandberg would be just okay by me.
Yeah.
Just-
Holy
they're
shit.
Just okay.
Holy
Would be amazing.
fuck. Yeah. That's the thing about horror films.
I thought about this last night.
Yeah. About horror films, really great directors aggregate from horror films.
We've said that on here
So
probably
many
a
times.
million times, but yes, 100%.
But what if
Peter Jackson, James Wan.
what
yeah.
if it was Peter Jackson?
I would love that. That was actually what I was thinking about during this.
I would still do James Wan or Sandberg.
What
for
about
me.
Sam Raimi?
Peter Jackson hasn't made a horror film in
In a while. In a
a
while.
long time. He's more the blockbuster type now.
Yeah. He's the James Cameron.
He doesn't. Yeah. So, I would still stick with the smaller. I mean, James Wan is like, I'd say he's in the master of horrors as far as director goes for me, up there with like, Carpenter and all that kind of stuff. He's done some great horror films.
I just realized if you water it down a lot, water it way down,
Yeah.
kind of like Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought you were giving that face about me saying James Wan is a great horror director.
Oh no,
and I
no, no,
said,
that's fucked
how do
up.
you
No,
not
James
agree
Wan
with
is
this?
amazing. I love that dude. He's phenomenal. Give him everything. Give him all of the movies. But I was just saying, John Krasinski, did you need to source out some material to this film?
I
this
mean,
book?
John Krasinski could be a good dad too. Like,
That's
if
what I
you
was saying.
that.
I was like,
yeah.
that's how it feels. It's like, there's a lot of guilt with this character. Anyways, that's it. Caitlin Zagram, shout out.
Seriously,
no
we
one.
need a
Shout
crown.
out to Tom and Josh.
I would love that.
What?
You guys got it right.
Would we want
Congrats.
it to be a big ass crown though?
Anyway, sing us out.
Sing us out, Josh.
Thank you so much, everybody at home, for listening. If you have read this story, let us know your thoughts. Reach out to us on social media, which is at NerdOnTV on everything. Slip and slide into those DMs. Tell us your thoughts. Join the Discord. There is a comics channel in that server. Let's discuss. Let us talk about it. We always invite our audience to come check out the Discord. There are some really cool people in there. Lots
Troops.
of fun conversations, anywhere from DIY to cosplay to food to comics to pretty much anything you can think about, even musicals. I mean, it's all in there. Do check out our website, nerdon.tv. It has all of the information on everything that we do, all the links to everything that you would want to know about Nerd On. We do have our YouTube channel that all of these episodes go to, so check that out. We actually have 2 YouTube channels. So
Two.
one's for gaming content and one's for this kind of content.
Two time.
Podcast. 2 time. Check out our Twitch. We are pretty much on there almost every single day, very often. And it's quite the variety of games that we play on there because we're all a variety of people. So lots of fun stuff going on over there. But yeah, that has been it. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, share us with your friends, your family. Stop by
And your
rate
witches.
and review, and your witches.
Pledge us.
No,
Pledge.
don't do that.
But yeah, stop by, rate and review us. That has been it. Now I can say that part. It has been it. You know the drill. As always, nerd on.
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.
Don't worry, Julie will never hear any of this.
Are you sure about that?